Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a special meeting of the Clay County Board of Education. I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order, and then I'll entertain a motion that we accept the agenda as it was presented. Mr. Caldwell, make the motion.
I'll second it.
Second, all in favor? And then Ms. Hodge, with no public comment this evening, so we'll move right into reports. And Mr. Cole's going to go over a couple of things for us real quick.
So, members of the board, we have in the report section of the agenda, we have 3 first read items. So these will not require any vote or decisions by you tonight. They're just things that we'll be talking about next Monday night at our regular meeting. So you will have a week to kind of think about it, and ask questions, and get feedback from anyone you wish. First of all, we have the proposed 2021-2022 district calendar. That is in your folder calendar that looks so. It is color coded for the different days. We did have a calendar committee made up of administrators, teachers, and parents that worked together on this. Ms. Stewart will do a short presentation at next week's meeting to just kind of share who was on the committee and make sure that we recognize them, because they put forth their own time. They had 2 or 3 different meetings and then did some work from home on this. The calendar proposal is never an easy thing. There are a lot of competing interests in that. One thing that you'll see that will be a big change from previous years is that Clay County has been part of a waiver of the North Carolina State Calendar Law for the last 10 years. And one of the areas, and again, Ms. Stewart is going to talk about this a little more next week, but the state, we had to report the number of snow days that we had during that 10-year period. And depending on the average of snow days that we had during that time, that's what would decide whether or not we would be eligible for that calendar waiver again. And we did not have enough snow days during that time to be eligible for another state calendar waiver. So we're going to have to revert back to the calendar law that the rest of North Carolina follows. So that means that we have to start a little later than we normally would, or we have in the last 10 years, which also means we'll go to school a little later in June in the upcoming year than normally we would. Now, one thing that we did work out that was a priority for everyone was the committee wanted to make sure that our students, our high school students who are on a block schedule, that they had an opportunity to take their end of course state exams before leaving for Christmas break. They felt like that was extremely important, that they liked having the closure before they went to Christmas break and being able to come back and start fresh. They felt like the data from the test scores would be more accurate because the information will be more fresh on the students' minds if they took their exams at that time. And I agree with them. The consequence of that is that we still have to follow the state calendar law. And so we can't start until a certain date, and we can't end before a certain date. So that means that our first semester is actually going to be a little shorter than our second semester as far as the number of instructional days. Probably right around a couple of weeks shorter. So keep that in mind as you're looking at this. We've tried to work around teacher work days and to try to make up for some of that difference. But there's no way that we can end first semester before Christmas break with the mandated start date that we have in August and have the same amount of instructional days that we would have for a second semester in the spring. Just mathematically, it will not work out. A lot of districts in the state, when they come back from Christmas break, they actually have 2 weeks of first semester regular classes to review, and then that 3rd week of January is when they'll have their end of course exams. But our committee did not want that, so they have put together this proposal for you that would allow us to end before the students leave for Christmas break. Now, with that said, the board has the ultimate decision on the calendar proposal. So if there are things about this that you would like to change, you can certainly give some feedback next week, and we can work on doing that with the calendar committee and the administrators. But the goal is, if we can, to go ahead and have one approved by next board meeting, and that will allow us to go ahead and move forward with registration at the high school for next year, registration of classes. So that is the 2021-2022 district school calendar proposal.
Thank you. So if we've got questions or concerns, we just email you.
If the board members, if you have any questions or concerns, you can email me or call me, and I will follow up with you. Absolutely. So if there are no questions right now, obviously that calendar is a lot to take in, so that's why I figured it'd be good to have it for a first read tonight to give you a little time to look over it. Number 5 on the agenda is the proposed Hazel High School graduation date. This is also a first read. It'll be subject to approval by the board next week. But the school improvement team and administration at Hazel High School are proposing June 4th, which is a Friday night at 6 p.m. for their graduation date this year. They would like for the ceremony to be held outside at the football field for better ventilation and the opportunity to have more spectators for our seniors. They would like to set the rain date as Saturday, June 5th, which will be the next evening at the same time, following the same plan. So hopefully we wouldn't be diving in thunderstorms 2 nights in a row. But obviously, if we did, there's always we could move things back to Sunday, and we could try again if we needed to. So that is the proposed Hazel High School graduation date and plan. And number 6 on the agenda is a proposed partnership between Clay County Schools and Southwestern Child Development Commission to work on creating a daycare, a public daycare at Hazel Primary School. And this is, again, a first read. Southwestern has provided this proposal for the board to read over and take a look at. If you will look at the last page of that, I've just jotted down a few notes. Currently, they are also working up a memorandum of understanding that would cover a few more details that go beyond just this proposed partnership agreement. So items to address include, first of all, Southwestern would be responsible for all cleaning of the daycare rooms at Hazel Primary School. So those are 2 rooms. They would be responsible for the cleaning services. Mainly because at the end of their day, it'll probably be 5:30, 5:45. Our custodians will already be gone for the day. So they'll need to take care of that. Southwestern will be responsible for all expenses resulting from any damage incurred to the daycare rooms due to daily operations. So if anything were broken or something that happened due to daily operations, they would be responsible for having them fixed. Certainly, if our maintenance department could provide the labor, we would do that, but they would have to pay for the materials, whatever it took to fix it. And then last, the Hazel Primary School principal would have final say on all timelines and procedures related to opening and closing the school and daycare, as well as how non-staff parents would enter and exit the building. So we would put together a plan that we felt like would be safe for non-staff parents. And final approval of that would be with the principal. Those are facility questions. Well, I was just going to say that I just wanted the board to have an opportunity to read over that this week and think about, again, questions that you may have. And obviously nothing has been decided. That's up to the board. I'm just kind of working with them to come up with what it might look like in order to make this happen.
I'm just going to say that Southwestern is a year-round program. Are we proposing that this also be a year-round program?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And essentially what we're looking at right now is there would be 36 spots. 17 of them would be set aside for staff members of Clay County Schools. We would get priority for those 17 spots. And then, of course, there are some other details that we're ironing out that go along with that. But we haven't had 17 kids in there for a while, so I feel like that will cover all of our needs. And any that are left over could, of course, they could use for private parents who are sending their students in that are non-staff members, as well as subsidized students or children from Clay County. I think this is a great opportunity to work with a local nonprofit to provide more daycare options for parents in Clay County, while at the same time providing a really good recruiting tool for Clay County schools, a really strong benefit for our teachers, and doing it in a way that doesn't cost the school system money.
Thank you for that.
Okay. And those are all of my first read reports.
So next is the proposal to move grades 6 through 12 to Plan A.
Yes, members of the board, this is the only action item that we have on the agenda tonight. We hadn't actually planned for this, but thankfully the governor and the General Assembly were able to come to a compromise agreement last week that would afford us this opportunity, not just our district, but districts all across the state of North Carolina. I was also informed this afternoon, I guess it was probably about 4 o'clock, the State Board of Education, North Carolina State Board of Education met in emergency session today and approved a new requirement that would require every school district in the state of North Carolina to provide 4 days a week of instruction for K-5 students, no later than April 1st. So again, I'm thankful that in Clay County, we've been providing 4 days a week of instruction for K-5 students, I think since October, whenever we had that opportunity. So that has been helpful for our K-5 students. We have not been able to do that with 6-12, and there have been academic consequences as a result. There's no denying that. And so we are working towards trying to mitigate some of those academic consequences for grades 6 through 12. We now have that opportunity. In order to do this, the requirements are we have to submit a report to NCDHHS explaining what we plan to do. They do not have the authority to deny us the ability to do this. We just have to submit a report that explains what we're planning to do and how we're planning to do it. And then we also have to agree to provide data, COVID-related data, that is non-student or adult specific as far as names, but just the same data that we've been reporting on our Facebook page every Monday since all of this started. And we brought students back. We have to agree to provide that to the ABC Science Collaborative, which is a group that is working with Duke University Medical to collect data on COVID school reopenings, I think for the purposes of research and also to just kind of see how things are going in different parts of the state. So we're already collecting this data. Like I said, we've been putting this data out to the community all along every Monday, so it's really not going to be any additional hindrance for us. I'm happy to provide it if we can go ahead and move forward with getting our students some more instruction. The proposal to move grades 6-12 to Plan A, what we're proposing is that we bring them back 4 days per week. We would like to keep Wednesday as a remote day for our fully remote students, because that day allows our teachers a day to do online virtual meetings with the fully remote students. It allows them planning time to create lessons for those fully remote students. And I think it would be really too much of a burden right now to ask of our teachers to provide face-to-face instruction 5 days a week, plus put together remote instruction for fully remote students and try to meet with them after the school day. I feel like the instruction will be better for both groups, and it'll be more equitable if we have that day in the middle of the week to be able to provide that instruction, as well as give everything a good thorough cleaning midweek. I would like to be able to continue to do that. We are required by law to continue to provide fully remote instruction for the parents that choose it. So we will continue to do that. All students, staff, and visitors, they would continue to be required to wear approved face coverings when they're in our buildings and on our campus. So that would not change. All other safety procedures would remain in place except spacing requirements in schools and on buses, which would go from moderate 6 feet of space to minimum spacing. And that, like I said, includes classrooms, hallways, and buses. And that's what's kind of been holding us up all along, is the 6 foot distance requirement in grades 6 through 12. The tentative start date that we would like to set for this would be March 22nd, which is next Monday if possible. If we can get the food ready for the cafeteria, if we can get our bus routes kind of put together and have everything ready to go, we would like to try to start March 22nd. And have our grades, really grades K through 12 here, 4 days a week, with Wednesdays as fully remote for everyone. Until the end of the year, or until we get to a point where we have so few fully remote students that we can move 5 days a week. Just one thing to consider, that I'll just put this out there that you may get questions about, is our teachers just received their first vaccinations. I think most of them did the Moderna vaccination, which of course is 2 shots. I think they got their first shots on the 10th, which means that their second shot would come somewhere around, I think, April, no later than April 7th, depending on when they got their first shot. There may be some questions asked about possibly considering waiting until after spring break to bring students back. The argument for that would be that teachers would have the opportunity at that point to have had their second vaccination. April 7th is a Wednesday, and then there's Thursday, Friday, then it's spring break the next week. So if we waited that long, our students would not come back until the week after spring break. So I just want to, in the interest of giving you all the information that I have that I feel like may come up, that's a consideration. Be the 19th.
Is that right?
I actually did
12
my
is spring break, right? So April the 19th. Okay.
So April 7th is a Wednesday. Then you can imagine that there may be some people that get sick after their second shot. That's a pretty common occurrence. So we may have some absences on the 8th and 9th, possibly. Then you've got spring break the following week, and then the students would come back the week after that. So, that is a consideration. I don't know for how many it would be, but I want you to have all of the information. But my recommendation is that we get our students back in as soon as we can, which will be March 22nd.
Questions, discussion, comments, concerns?
Hypothetical, teachers, let's say, one that took their second shot. We had a big outbreak of teachers being sick. We have enough subs to cover.
Well, it depends on how many of them get sick.
That's hypothetical.
That's right. And so this compromise law still gives school boards the right or the authority to close their district as needed for COVID-related needs, which include personnel issues, where if you don't have enough subs to cover the number of people that have to be out sick, then we can shut the district down for a couple of days if we need to. Everything I've read and everything that I've experienced, so I actually got my first shot. I got sick on the first shot. And I think the doctor told me it was because I had COVID before. And so I was sick for a couple of days. But it affects everybody differently, so there's no way of knowing. I think we just kind of have to be prepared. And I think that we actually have a lot more substitutes now than we had when we started all of this. Thankfully, we've been getting about 3 or so every month that we've been able to approve. So we could cover for more of our teachers if they get their shot on the 7th and then they're sick. But I think we'll just have to make that decision when we get there this year.
When will we know about the numbers, how many kids virtual versus how many coming back?
So they've been surveying at the middle school and the high school. They started on Friday. I didn't get their numbers yet for today. But I'll be honest, I'm not expecting a huge change in the number of students that are going to be coming back, especially at the high school. I mean, I could be surprised, but I just don't know yet. I think we had a little hard time getting in touch with a lot of folks, so we're still working on that. And I didn't feel like I had enough information to really be able to give you anything that would help you make a decision yet as far as that goes.
So I guess the feel is that the students who are in the cohorts A and B that have been coming, obviously they'll come. The ones that are remote will most likely stay remote.
Well, possibly, yes. I don't foresee a big change. I think some kids will come back. But I don't know that it'll be a huge number. And we're about 35-40% fully remote at the high school. I think in the middle school was about 20%, which is still a lot of kids, and they're spread out. So
I think getting them back in is obviously a huge plus, academically as well as socially and emotionally. Still wearing masks, and they're still going to have to be wearing a mask the whole time that they're in there. Teachers are going to be wearing masks with face coverings and
yes.
stuff. So.
And parents, like I said, they still have the right to keep their kids home, and we'll provide fully remote instruction, just like we have done all along. So if they're uncomfortable, then they have that option.
And I think for me, I like the idea, like you said, of Wednesdays being just, even though we're mixing the cohorts, you still got Wednesday to spray everything down and disinfect everything kind of midweek. Teachers are already used to having Wednesdays.
Well, I'll tell you another thing too. At this point, it's not just COVID. We've got a stomach bug going around. We've got, just common flu kind of going around. So when we spray, we kill everything. So it's a pretty good idea halfway through the week to go ahead and do that. Anyway.
That's a good.
Well, you was talking about Wednesday. We go 2 days. I was talking to Mr. Cook about it. We'll go 2 days. We're off a day. Go 2 more days. And I was wondering, is it more for the spraying taken care of? Because I think I read somewhere in an email from out east from the government group that they said 4 days, and then on Friday you do cleanup or so on and so forth.
So what we've been doing all along
we can hold that.
We're doing Wednesdays, but then I'm actually paying a couple of our custodians to come in a little overtime on the weekends, and we spray everything on the weekend too. So we've been doing it twice a week since all of this started.
And this would just fall in too with what we're already doing in primary and elementary.
Yes, ma'am. They've been doing the Wednesday remote days in K-5 too.
Yeah.
And it's just, I guess part of it too is at this point we've kind of been doing this and everybody's kind of used to that schedule. And I'm sure parents have child care kind of plans put together for Wednesday remote, and so I'd rather keep it the way it is, because I just think it'll be easier for everybody to continue that. I mean, that's part of it too.
Any other comments, discussion, questions? Well, if that's all, I'll entertain a motion that we propose to move grades 6 through 12 to Plan A, tentatively beginning as early as March 22nd, depending on food.
Just buses and food, making sure that we get the logistics worked out. And we'll, of course, inform the community before the end of this week where we are on that, yes.
Chairman, I make a motion.
So Mr. Caldwell makes the motion. Second, Mr. Jones, all in favor? Aye. Thank you. Any other comments or remarks? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we go into closed session for personnel and negotiations. Anyone make a motion?
I'll say.
Ms. Beck, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for attending.
Go to closed session.
Thank you.